Hello, hello, sweet honeybees. Welcome to the Electric Honey Pot, where energy is the nectar of life. My name is Autumn, and this whole project is about the human experience the good, the bad, the ugly, and all of the magic that happens in between. In previous episodes, I have talked about how I lost my mother to murder. And in one episode in particular, I speak about how there were all kinds of suspicious circumstances and suspicious behavior within my family leading up to her murder and after her murder. I also briefly mentioned in this video how I had a dream, a premonition, where there will be 5 different arrests in connection to the crimes surrounding her death. But I haven't gone into too much detail about all of the psychic and spiritual experiences that I have been having in the time leading up to her dying and afterwards. And I just kinda wanna get into that today because her birthday is tomorrow, and on her birthday last year was when I really started feeling her spirit urging me to start speaking about my suspicions of my family. My mom has been communicating with me within my dreams since before I even knew she was murdered. But last year, her communication with me really ramped up, and it's just wild because I now understand that experiencing substantial loss and grief in your life opens up these new doors of deeper levels of consciousness. It opens up doors of being more perceptive of existence beyond this 3D world that we currently live in, and it just kind of lifts the veil from over your eyes. I also want to talk a little bit about how our souls choose the experiences that we're going to have before we come here. We are the universe, God, spirit, whatever you want to call it, experiencing itself. And it is playing a character right now. I mean, Autumn technically does not exist. It's just the persona that my consciousness is currently playing in order to have a better understanding of itself. I am the universe experiencing itself, and in order to experience myself, I have to live in duality. So, with that being said, I want to start from the very beginning about how when I was a teenager, I started really getting into true crime. I was constantly consuming all of this true crime material, and I was just fascinated by criminal minds and murder mystery stories. Um, I read a lot of literature based upon crimes. As I got older, I listened to podcasts, I watched documentaries. True crime was one of my favorite subjects. I always found myself trying to empathize with not only the victim, but also with the victims' families. And I was just fascinated by what could drive someone to do the things that they do. And I was just fascinated by these stories of people doing these awful things, truly believing that they would get away with it. And if I knew back then what I know now about my life and my spiritual journey, I would have realized that I was essentially preparing myself for what I knew was going to happen on a subconscious level. Like, on a subconscious level, I understood that I would eventually be a family member of a murder victim, and I was subconsciously preparing myself for the moment it would happen. I have struggled with my mental health for the vast majority of my life, and don't get me wrong, I still struggle with my mental health some, but ever since my mom's murder, I have not physically self-harmed myself. I have not, tried to end my life when these were behaviors that I was regularly displaying up until this point. Um, it's just wild because losing my mom to murder is one of the most complicated and one of the heaviest things that I have ever had to carry in my life. Yet it is the experience that I have found the most strength, self-love, and confidence within as well. And then there was another realization that I had last year about an experience that I had prior to my mom being murdered. So this story is gonna be a little bit heavy as well, and it does involve some of my sexual trauma. I am going to go into a little bit of detail just because it is relevant to the story and what I'm trying to express surrounding psychic abilities and grief and loss. I was at a house with this guy that I was seeing at the time, and this was right after COVID when I was really deep in substance abuse because I was trying to escape my reality. I was dating this guy solely so I had access to drugs because this guy made me extremely uncomfortable, but I hated my life with or without the drugs. So I just kind of subjected myself to a lot of mistreatment and people that I didn't necessarily want to be around and that weren't necessarily good for me so I could have an escape from my life. And while at this house, we all ate these Tootsie Rolls. I was told that this Tootsie Roll was a psilocybin Tootsie Roll, and I didn't realize that everybody else only ate half of this Tootsie Roll. I ate the whole thing. I recently, just a couple of months ago, found out that this Tootsie Roll was some kind of research chemical. It wasn't actually psilocybin. But while on this Tootsie Roll, I began having this extremely intense ego death. I felt it coming on, and I had asked the guy that I was with if we could go be somewhere private because I was feeling uncomfortable and I didn't want to be around a bunch of people, especially not the people that we were there with. And so the host let us go upstairs to her bedroom. As we're going up the stairs, my ego death starts to hit me, and I start repeating my name over and over again. Autumn, Autumn, Autumn. I'm Autumn. I'm Autumn because I felt like I was losing myself. This is what an ego death is because Autumn is the ego because that's not necessarily who I am at my core because at my core I'm this pure consciousness, this energetic being. I am God. I am the universe. Autumn is just a character. And she was slipping away as I was climbing up these stairs. And so I'm just repeating my name, trying to fight this ego death, holding on to this sense of identity that I have. And I start saying something's not right. Maybe we should call an ambulance. And he tells me it's fine. It's just all in my head. When we're in the bedroom and sitting on the bed, this guy just starts like kissing all over me while I'm having an ego death. And I'm like asking him to stop. And he's just like, "Oh, but you're my girlfriend. I love you. You look so pretty right now." As I'm like freaking out. Eventually, he has me go in the bathroom and he tries to have sex with me while I am in the process of an ego death. You know, I was date raped while on this Tootsie Roll in the middle of a very intense ego death. And the reason why I want to tell this story is because of what I experienced as he was doing that to me. Because the ego death turned into something much greater than just an ego death. I had visions of my mom's murder 2.5 years before it even happened. It was cryptic because visions do not come through most of the time as just straightforward. That's why you have all of these seers that speak in riddles because visions and messages often come in cryptid visuals and symbolism. But I astral projected out of my body, and I'm just up in the corner of the bathroom, staring down at both of us on the bathroom floor. And as I'm watching what's happening from the ceiling, the walls begin to bleed. They're pulling blood all over the bathroom floor, and the blood slowly envelops both of our bodies until we're not visible anymore. And then out of the center of the blood, my mom rose. And then I just started seeing the faces of my aunt, my uncle, my grandparents, my sister, all flash before my eyes. These are all the family members that are connected to this. And I just came back to in my body. I started crying. I was having these thoughts, I don't want to lose my family. I don't want to lose my family, but I didn't understand what I was viewing. And I started crying, so he stopped. He said, I can't finish with you crying. And I just kind of repressed this memory into the back of my mind for a very long time. I didn't confront it. But then last year, as my spiritual awakening started taking place and I was reflecting on all of these experiences that I had, I started realizing that I've had all of these psychic experiences throughout my entire life, and I've had visions throughout my entire life as well. And then that's when it hit me that I quite literally had a premonition of my mom's murder 2.5 years before it happened. And then that's also when I realized that as a teenager, all of this obsession that I had with true crime was quite literally me preparing myself for the experiences that I would be having later on in life, because my soul chose this. My soul chose to have this experience. It chose to know what this was like. It picked out this family. Let's fast forward just a little bit to the week that my mom was murdered. She was murdered on August 17th of 2022. And I remember in the middle of the week, like, I didn't even find out she was missing until the 20th, so a couple of days later. But I remember in the middle of the week waking up from a dream where my mom had visited me in that dream. And I can't remember what the dream was, but I remember waking up and I just had this unsettling feeling within me. When I got the phone call on that Saturday on August 20th, where my sister told me not to freak out, but have you heard from mama? I already knew that my mom was gone. I already knew. That dream was her telling me goodbye. And I just had this feeling throughout my entire body that she just was not present anymore. But I spent the rest of the event that I was at, where I learned of her being gone, spiraling in my head. Once again, I was on psychedelics, but this time I was on like actual LSD. And I was just in the hammock, kind of spiraling, going over all of the worst case scenarios, but trying to convince myself that it's all in my head. When deep down, I knew that the man that had the man that she was with had done something to her, because I had always suspected that he would hurt her one day. But eventually, I had this voice inside of me, and it wasn't my own voice. It was not the voice of Autumn. It was something deeper within me. I now recognize this as my spirit, my connection to source consciousness. It said, "Get up and dance for her spirit." And so the rest of the night, I just danced in a complete trance, staring up at the sky, at the stars, praying to the base gods, praying to the ancestors up in the stars for her spirit, for her safe return, even though I knew it was a return back to the other world, not this world. And then I didn't I didn't really have anything happen that I directly connected to her for a minute. I had all kinds of strange synchronicities happen with cardinals appearing, and looking back, I can recognize that this was happening in relation to her, but at the time, I didn't realize that. I quite literally made Facebook posts talking about how I feel like the universe is trying to communicate with me, and I did make comments about feeling the presence of my mom's spirit at times, but I just hadn't made that full connection yet and realized that I was channeling her energy and that she was around me and guiding me. But then one day, I went to work in 2023, in spring of 2023, and I was working at this sandwich shop, and there was this little red cardinal that would quite literally tap on the glass as I'm opening the store trying to get ready for the day, and it would bounce along the glass as I walked through the store prepping it for the day. And then once the store opened, the little bird would fly away. And this went on for a couple of weeks. And looking back, it all started happening right after I received money from my sister and I selling my mom's house. So I didn't even really need this job at the time. I had money from selling the house that I could float off of. And this cardinal showed up around the exact same time. But then Mother's Day of 2023 came, and the cardinal was there that morning. He disappeared right as we went to the open the store. It was my very first Mother's Day without my mom, and my boss was completely inconsiderate of that and scheduled me to work that day. We were extremely busy. It was just nonstop tickets, and at some point one entire wall goes down power-wise. We lost our ability to steam sandwiches, we lost our ability to toast sandwiches, the warmers were down, so pretty much the only thing we could do was make cold sandwiches that weren't toasted. All of my coworkers had stopped working. I was expressing I had somehow ended up on register. I usually didn't work register because I am super detail oriented and I was really good at making the sandwiches, so I was usually on the line. But somehow I had ended up on register that day. I was telling customers that we couldn't steam their sandwiches or toast them and that we couldn't do certain food items due to our warmers being down, and customers were completely okay with that. So I was still taking tickets, and my coworkers were just kind of goofing off since we were out of power. I told them that we're getting backed up. They told me that I'm stressing them out. So I was just like, I'm stressing you guys out. You're stressing me out. I'll just leave. So I left the store. I didn't come back. The assistant manager of the store, the owner of the store, and multiple coworkers were texting me trying to get me to return over the next couple of weeks. And looking back, I feel like this was my mom getting me to leave that job, because I would have stayed and just worked through all of the pain and the grief that was inside of me, and the day that I walked out was the first day that I really started processing my grief. I mean, I was still coping with substances and trying to escape the way that I was feeling, but I was finally out of the shock phase where I was feeling a lot of anger and sadness, whereas in the months prior, I was in complete and utter shock, and I really wasn't having too much of an emotional response regarding everything that had happened. And the synchronicities with the cardinal and my mom just continued. But then things got really intense whenever I moved into this house, because once I moved into this house, within a couple of months, I got extremely sick. I got fired from my job because I was sick. And then I was just kind of giving up on my life. I really felt like I had nothing to live for. I was at a complete point of surrender. And that's when I started having that little voice come back and feeding me information. And that's when my mom began visiting me in my dreams again. Then one day I just completely woke up and I realized that Autumn is this character and that my mom is communicating with me and that I have this mediumship ability, but that it doesn't come through in obvious communication. You have to pay attention to your environment and your surroundings. Like your loved ones on the other side, they speak in this special code that you have to decipher. Like I'll be thinking of my mom and a song may come on the radio that reminds me of her. For example, earlier this year, I was having a really hard day after I had gone no contact with that partner that I was with that was really, really bad for me. I usually didn't buy food at the gas station anymore because I was trying to be better about my diet, but this morning I was just like, I'm gonna get some food before work. I'm going to do some emotional eating. So I got a Ghost energy drink and then I got a little bit of food from the gas station. And my total came up to $6.26. This is the number that I associate with my mom, 626, because it used to be a part of her phone number. So I immediately knew that my mom was with me on this day where I was having a really hard time. I was holding myself together as I walked out to my car. I started crying when I got into my car, and then when I cut the car on, the very first thing that I hear on the radio is, "Girl, you're my angel. You're my darling angel." And I just knew my mom was trying to comfort me when I was having a hard day and I was feeling really alone, and she was just trying to remind me that I'm not alone. The universe, her, myself, all of my past loved ones, they are always supporting me at every step of the way, no matter how hard things get, no matter how dark things get. They're always there, even if it's not obvious, they are. The universe speaks this secret language. I've mentioned this book before. If you have not read it, you really should read the book, The Alchemist. It is one of the best fiction books I have ever read because it is also based off of spiritual truth. Even the hardships that happen within our lives are designed with purpose to lead us towards something greater. I remember when I was a child and I just had this feeling within me that one day I was going to be famous. And after I had this dream about 5 different people being arrested in connection to my mom's murder, I was being interviewed by news stations, YouTube channels, podcast hosts, all wanting to talk to me about how I solved the crime before the police did and how frustrating it was that no one took me seriously. I've received messages about famous psychic over the last year. And I don't say any of this to brag because my life is not a life that I would wish on anybody. But everything that I have been through has been designed to give me exactly what I wished for when I came into this life and exactly what I have wished for my entire life, from being that little girl that wanted to be known, wanted her voice to be heard, up to wanting magic to be real. And through my mom's murder, I have discovered how real magic truly is. And it's so funny because my mom and I had this really strained relationship when I was a child. She preferred to watch TV rather than spend time with me, and her favorite show was Charmed, this TV show about witches. And as I've been going through my own spiritual awakening, I have been noticing all of these characteristics about my mom that are within me when I never wanted to be like my mom, and now I'm really happy that I do have those good traits of her, that there are parts of her within me. And my spiritual gifts aren't just about me, but they're also about her. They're a part of her. What happened to her is a part of them. All of the hard things that I have faced in my life have all just been a part of something greater unfolding within my life. It just all takes time. It happens in divine timing. And all of these things in my life that I have believed were curses against me have actually turned out to be some of the greatest blessings in my life because it has created this compassionate, brave, strong, beautiful human being that I am. And I just hope that I make my mom proud. I would like the truth to come into the light. I can't control when or how it happens. All I can do is continue to speak my truth and just have faith that the truth will surface one day and there will be some form of justice here in the 3D world. But ultimately, my goal is to make my mom proud. She's no longer here to live her life, so my life is no longer just my own life. It's about her too. I'm a part of her legacy as much as she is a part of mine, and she's no longer here to live her life and to enjoy the things that she loved, like animals and music, travel, things that all I also really, really love. And I just want to live my life to the fullest in her memory, in her honor, and I feel her spirit around me at music festivals. Strange spiritual occurrences happen. My friends have even witnessed things like this. While we were at Electric Forest, it was the final night, and we were walking past the Lost Library. Someone that was in our friend group picked up a book. The book that was under it was a book called Honey. Honeybees, right? Nectar, honey. I opened it also had a dog on the cover, which if you know me, I love dogs. I opened up this book and the page that I opened it to, I just opened it to a random page and I picked a paragraph to read and it said, "Can you tell me about my mother's death? I don't know the details, but I know that it was sudden and unexpected." And then my other friend, Golden Goddess, I showed it to her and she's just like, "Wow, that is strange. Your mom is definitely here right now." I know that there's more to life than just this 3D material world. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed, it just becomes something new. And death is never the end. Death is just a release from our worldly suffering. It just means there's a new beginning and that we're returning home to our true home.
where we're infinite beings of pure consciousness, light, and energy. And our loved ones are always a part of us. They live on through our memories, our actions, our behaviors, our joy, our happiness, our sadness, our anger, our grief. They never leave our side, even if we can't physically see them, hear them, touch them ever again. And if you're someone that's struggling with grief, it's okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel alone, confused. It's all a part of the process, and it does get easier with time. Just know your loved ones are always looking after you, and they've never left your side. Well, I think I'm going to leave it there. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful rest of your day, night, week, month, year, and life. I'm going to go have a fun time for a friend's birthday this weekend to celebrate life rather than focusing on the fact that my mom's was taken so brutally. And I know that she's going to be there with me, and everything is okay. It always has been, it always will be. Everything is happening just as it was meant to happen. Trust the process. I love you so much. Thank you for listening. I'm grateful you're here. Stay curious.